quarterback. We'll get into that as well. But let's start off with Joey McGuire. I think everyone realized at some point he would be somewhere else. He had a chance during the offseason to look around, decided not to. Joey McGuire now at Texas Tech, and your thoughts on him with the Red Raiders.
I think it's a great hire for Texas Tech. And if you think say Jeff Traylor was their number one target at the beginning, or someone like Jeff Traylor, well, if you want coaches with that kind of similar pedigree, Joey McGuire is the next one you'd go to if that's what you want. And he's somebody who's going to be a really good recruiter for them. He's somebody who can overcome, and you've heard me say on this, it doesn't really matter about the college town because all college towns are the same. Lubbock is a little bit different, and they're an outlier. Like if you're in Norman or if you're in, Waco, or you're somewhere, you can be somewhere where you can go to a concert or go to a normal city in about an hour and a half or so or less. That's not the case in Lubbock. You're kind of away from everything. So you need to have a coach that can make the whole Lubbock experience great. I think Joey McGuire will do that. I think his football acumen is off the charts. His interpersonal skills are off the charts. Pretty much everything about Joey McGuire, to me, is off the charts. And I think this is a great hire for Texas Tech.
Well, to be fair, somebody that lived in Lubbock, you don't have to go to the concerts. They usually are in Lubbock. Yeah. Usually the big bands come out there because, as you said, they're not, they're too far away from Dallas or Houston or Fort Worth. So Lubbock has a little bit of more of a big city flair probably at times than a Waco would, just because it's kind of out there on an island. But at the same time, that is an attraction. It is. Having lived out there, when you want to just take a quick trip home, and that quick trip home's 5.5, 6 hours of a drive, it's not a quick trip home, and you don't get to do that as often as you would like. So that is something that I think plays probably into the minds of some recruits, and rightfully so. But for some who are a little on the fence, I'm sure Joey McGuire will be able to convince some of them that it's the right move. I think he'll hit the Texas high schools very hard. That's why they want him. It's not necessarily the coaching X's and O's done at the college level, because how could they be, right? I mean, he was a position coach and associate head coach, but we never saw him run a defense. We never saw him run an offense. And so I think they're going as much off of just experience, energy, the ability to rally a fan base, which he's already doing with his whole Let's Go, which, a year ago they'd probably have made fun of if they watched him do that at Baylor. But now it's like, oh, my God, look at the energy, And so I think for a team that has had no identity since, Kingsbury and arguably since Leach, they now will have one. It'll be, Texas high school football heavy. It'll be Texas, 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 and it'll be, Joey McGuire's free-loving, free spirit. So I think it's a move that will definitely get the Red Raiders fans excited, and I'm curious to see, what he does at coordinator, how he fills out his staff, and, dipping into the transfer portal. I'm not trying to start any rumors here, but I look at a guy like Josh Fleeks on Baylor's roster, who he knows very well, and I'm like, you know what, that would make sense for him. Josh Fleeks isn't catching a whole lot of balls around Waco, and you look around and there's lots of Cedar Hill guys and lots of other DFW guys that I'm sure he knows well. So he'll be interesting to track in that regard, both hiring and filling out his roster. But he's been waiting for this opportunity a while. He wanted the job that Aranda got. He interviewed for it, and they went with Aranda. So good to see that it worked out for him this time, and this is that opportunity he's been waiting for.
Aaron Wilson on the chat room, not the big name hire we were promised. Another decade of losing for Tech, I guess. We don't know. Let it go. He's never been a college head coach, but he was a hell of a head coach at high school. Now, someone brought up this yesterday when I was kind of watching some of the chatter. Well, Jerry Faust at Notre Dame, when he came from, Moeller in Cincinnati, whatever school it was, he was dominant. He went straight to high school. Joey McGuire's had a chance, and I use this word too much, marinate, under two coaches, under Matt Rule, who we know has been successful where he's been, and he's trying to turn around Carolina. They're 4-5 after a loss yesterday. And then also had a chance to spend over a year with Dave Aranda. I don't know about big-name coach. There's a lot of guys that have not been big-name coaches that have been successful before. In fact, you put some of those up before. But bottom line is he's gone. And this is immediate. This is the new college football. When Mack Rhodes finished today a press conference talking about the facilities and all that, the new football ops building, also the new part of the arena that eventually will go up, and where, they don't know yet, but will go up. I asked him, I said, is this just what we're going to see now? It's one thing for coaches to get hired at the end of the year and then maybe still coach a bowl game while keeping up with both sides of it, their new team and also wherever they are at that moment. This is different for an assistant coach in the middle of the year or near the middle of the year to go. And he's he's on campus. I mean, he's there. This is a different animal. He immediately starts helping Texas Tech. Now, he's apparently will not be the football coach until after the season's over. And for Texas Tech, that might be a bowl game. But he will help them. There's no question about it. Start working, grading assistants, looking around, helping with the recruiting. And as Craig said, looking around for players who may want to come play for him straight up.
Yeah, I'll add this about Joey McGuire. If you're worried about his experience level or anything, he could have 2 years ago taken he could have told his agent, like, give me whatever head coaching job is out there, and he didn't. He waited for the one that was right, which meant he had more time in the Big 12 to recruit. So I think that should help him going forward too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what all he had that was on the line, but clearly there were some teams that were interested, and clearly for the last 2.5 years, Joey's been interested in going places because we've heard his name, brought up, and I don't mean that as like a slight with him and Baylor. He gave Baylor everything that he had. I just mean that it's been very obvious that his time's running out, and I wrote an article last week, and I mentioned the possibility of Joey McGuire going elsewhere, and had a couple people like, well, why would he want to leave? Why wouldn't he want to stay? And eventually these guys want their opportunities, and really, to the post, we're talking about the big name that we were promised, and I don't know what kind of the feeling was amongst Tech fans as far as what they were expecting, but I can absolutely understand being a little let down. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a knock on Joey McGuire, but if you get your head on Jeff Traylor, and then all of a sudden that's Sonny Dykes, or that's Billy Napier, or that's this guy or that guy, and then for a coaching search that looks like it's maybe lost a couple of its top options and is going to last a little while, it's just Joey McGuire out of nowhere, just like boom, overnight. So I can see where a few Tech fans are a little unsure, but hey, he's gonna juice up the fan base. He's gonna get people excited. He'll bring in some good players. I don't know how it's going to turn out record-wise, but I think they're going to be in a much better position than they have been the last couple of years with Matt Wells.
He will invigorate the fan base, though, and I think they needed that. I'm not saying that Matt Wells didn't, but there was a little disconnect there as well. And again, he's gone. He's now at Texas Tech, like Joey McGuire to death, man. I do. He's a fantastic guy in what he meant to Baylor when he arrived. And I'll remember the story. He was not interested. I talked to him. He was not interested. I know Texas has made a run at him, Oklahoma after Rule left, and others, A&M, whoever, have made runs at him. But I remember when he had told me he's not interested, I asked him about Matt Rule hiring high school coaches. He was not interested. Then he met Matt Rule in Hillsborough over a cup of coffee. And the next thing you know, he's coming to Baylor. And those two rely on each other quite a bit. And Matt Rule wanted Joey McGuire to be the next head coach at Baylor. He really wanted that to happen and said that he might leave the staff alone if, in fact, they hired Joey. One of the names that I think Joey would have stayed with him had he gotten the job at Baylor when it opened with Matt Rule left was Mike Saravo, linebackers coach. Remember him? He's now with Carolina. Look for a possibility. I'm just looking at names as a Mike Saravo, the linebackers coach, who would have been his defensive coordinator, I think, at Baylor, who's now with Carolina, as a possibility of joining his staff. We know he can dip into the high school staff, but he needs to get some guys with college experience as well.
Yeah, that was a big deal when Joey was hired after that little meeting with Rule. That was something the fan base needed at the time, and just something to kind of hold on to and be happy about, and just something positive. And certainly the unexpected hire of a legendary high school coach like McGuire was something that Rule really won the fan base over with pretty early on. And then you had Sean Bell and David Wetzel, and you had the whole Texas trio. So the Texas trio is no longer two-thirds still here in Waco, and will continue being a part of this remaining season while McGuire goes off to start getting to work in Lubbock. But I think from a Baylor point of view, I love Joey McGuire, think he's a great coach, think he's a great person, think he's a great personality, and I'm thrilled for him. I want that to be clear. Now, I think they can go and find an adequate replacement, and I'm not real concerned in them doing that. Whether they go with somebody that also has Texas ties and feel like that's important, we'll be curious to see. But, I think Aranda will find a suitable replacement. I think what Baylor fans will miss most about McGuire is just going to be that feel-good, like he's a Texas high school guy and all of that. As far as on the field, there's probably some things that will change, but I trust Aranda to make sure that's okay.
There's obviously a connection here with Joey McGuire and Jeff Traylor. UT San Antonio, where Jeff Traylor's done a great job, is a place where Joey McGuire had an opportunity to be a head coach there. Traylor, of course, would have been one of Texas Tech's first targets and interviewed him, according to reports early on. Remember in the process when Matt Wells was fired, and Joey McGuire's there. And so both of them are now head coaches in the college game. This is from the chat room from Wreckham, Dallas. My top 3 choices were Traylor, McGuire, and Elko. They lost out on Traylor. I don't think Elko held enough interest in maybe Texas Tech. McGuire is already talking about his passion for the opportunity, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to be like a strike in a match. I said this to Chris Lovell, who covers Texas Tech. Stick your head in the tank of gasoline, light it with a match. That's the kind of energy, full throttle you'll get. We'll hear from Carlos Silva, who had the story along with Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal very late last night that, in fact, McGuire was going to Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think I saw the quote from Kirby Hocutt or someone in that circle that said that they were just blown away by how much McGuire wanted the job, I think is the quote that I saw. So he clearly interviewed very well and well enough that, they were apparently interviewing Graham Harrell yesterday as well, which I know is out there, but I'd actually heard a little bit before. And Graham, obviously is not going to be the guy. So,
but he might. But you wonder if he'll be the offensive coordinator. What do you think?
But I wonder if he might be the offensive coordinator. Yeah, because why interview him and then name a head coach hours later? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless it was just a courtesy thing. But even then, the timing of it's odd if you're naming Joey McGuire 8 hours later. So, I know that McGuire and Graham know each other. And so, maybe that's somebody to look out for. Saravo on defense would be a great hire, and maybe Harrell at OC, or maybe it's somebody else at OC. I don't know, but he's got options, and it'll be, like I said earlier, fun to see how he fills out his staff.
It will be interesting, again, with Graham Harrell, the USC thing. We know that clock is ticking. So if he'd still been there and everything was solid there, then I don't see him going to Texas Tech. His next job would have been a head coach somewhere else. Now he'll be looking most likely around, and so who knows? Your alma mater, perhaps it was a courtesy interview. They interviewed quite a few people, but he's out. Here is Dave Aranda. When he was asked about today, he had his regular Monday media session, and this is Dave Aranda when he was first asked about Joey McGuire to Texas Tech.
I'm excited for Joey. I told him that this morning. I'm excited for Debbie and for his family. I think we talked last time about one of the first times I met Joey, and my respect for him and my view of him was really shaped from that specific time, but has only grown throughout our time here together. And I know that this is something that he's worked for. You look at just Joey and his career and his story, what a journey he's been on, and for him to have an opportunity at Tech. I'm really happy for him, and I told him that, and I wish him all types of success. And he is beloved here, and so he took some time this morning to go around and say his goodbyes to the Baylor football family, and so excited for him. I think he's going to do great. He will energize that fan base and that team.
By the way, if some of you on the chat room asked you about what he coached, he initially came here as a tight ends coach. His son Garrett was on the quarterback depth chart, and then he became the assistant head coach, and then, of course, along with that, coached the outside linebackers when Matt Rule left.
Yeah, he was a little bit of everything. He was like 3 different position coaches, and then, last year after interviewing for the job and not getting it, or was it before, he got the associate head coach title. He was the interim when Rule left, or no, 2 years ago. So he's the interim when Rule left, and then I think when Aranda came on, he got the associate head coach title. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think
or did
that
it come
might
before
have been
that?
Before
yeah,
that.
At some point that came into play, and so he was the associate head coach, and then he was the interim, and then Aranda got the job, even though McGuire interviewed for it.
Yeah, Rule's last year when they made the run to the Sugar Bowl, he was moved from tight ends to defensive ends and then given the assistant head coaching or associate head coaching job. And then when Rule left, he became the outside linebackers coach and kept that same position as associate head coach.
Yeah, so he's got a little bit of experience everywhere, and he's very adaptable in that way. And he's not going to have to do any of that now. He's the head coach, so he can designate who does what as far as that goes. If you're a Tech fan, you should be really happy. I think he's going to be. The word energized keeps getting brought up. That's certainly what he's going to bring. That's what we saw around Waco the last few years. I think Baylor fans are probably disappointed, but this is not the end of the world by any means either. This is a great opportunity for a great coach. I did see a couple of tweets. I think some Tech fans are a little over their skis. They were mentioning that he was like their ace recruiter and put together their whole class. And so, like, he was a very good recruiter. He did not single-handedly, I literally saw a tweet that said he basically single-handedly put together Baylor's recruiting. That is far from true. That is going way overboard, but he is a very good recruiter, has great connections, all those things that come with being a former Texas high school coach. So, yeah, they definitely got a good one. And like I said, I'm interested to see what direction Baylor goes to replace him. And obviously when that happens will probably be after the season. So I'm curious to see kind of how that works the rest of the way.
We're going to get into Texas